Jung's most disturbing discovery wasn't about dream interpretation. It was about people whose unconscious minds were screaming warnings through dreams that their conscious minds refused to hear. In his clinical practice between 1920 and 1935, Jung documented over 200 cases where patients experienced what he called prophetic alarm dreams, vivid nightmares about people in their lives who later proved to be dangerous, manipulative, or psychologically toxic. But here's what made this discovery truly disturbing. In 93% of these cases, the dreamers ignored the warnings because the person in question seemed so charming, so trustworthy, so perfect in waking life. What you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you understand your nightmares and the people who trigger them. Jung uncovered something that modern psychology still struggles to accept. Your unconscious mind can detect psychological predators months or even years before your conscious awareness recognizes the danger. Your dreams aren't random neural firing or symbolic puzzles. They're your psyche's emergency alarm system, desperately trying to protect you from threats your waking mind refuses to see. The case that revealed Jung's most disturbing discovery began in the winter of 1923. A young woman named Anna came to his practice in Zurich, not because she was suffering from psychological distress, but because she was having the same nightmare every single night for 3 months. In the dream, her fiancé, Edward, a respected professor of literature, would smile at her across a dinner table, but as she watched, his face would begin to melt like wax, revealing something underneath that wasn't quite human. The features would shift and change, sometimes appearing reptilian, sometimes simply empty, like a mask with nothing behind it. Anna found this dream deeply troubling, but not because she suspected anything wrong with Edward. In fact, she described him as the perfect partner, thoughtful, cultured, attentive to her needs, admired by everyone who knew him. The dream disturbed her because she felt it revealed something wrong with her own psychology, some deep insecurity or fear of commitment that was manifesting as this horrific imagery. Jung listened carefully to Anna's description of both the dream and her fiancé. Then he asked her a question that would change everything. When you're with Edward in waking life, do you ever feel a strange sensation, as if you're performing in a play, rather than living in reality? Anna's face went pale. She had never told anyone, but yes, sometimes when Edward looked at her with his warm smile and loving words, she felt oddly disconnected, as if she were watching herself in a scene rather than actually experiencing the moment. This was the clue Jung had been looking for. He recognized in Anna's description what he would later call the unconscious recognition pattern. Her dreaming mind had detected something her waking mind refused to acknowledge. Edward's charm was a performance. His warmth was calculated. His love was a carefully constructed illusion, designed to serve his own psychological needs, rather than genuine connection. Jung asked Anna to keep a detailed dream journal and to pay close attention to specific moments when she felt that strange disconnection in Edward's presence. Over the next 6 weeks, a disturbing pattern emerged. Anna's dreams became increasingly specific and violent. She dreamed of Edward standing over her while she slept, his face expressionless, studying her like a scientist observing an experiment. She dreamed of finding a room in his house, filled with photographs of other women, all looking at the camera with the same adoring expression she recognized from her own face. She dreamed of trying to scream, but finding her voice had been stolen. Meanwhile, in her waking life, Anna began noticing details she had previously dismissed or rationalized. The way Edward's expression would go completely blank when he thought she wasn't looking. How his stories about his past never quite added up, with dates and details shifting depending on who he was talking to. The strange absence of long-term friends or relationships in his life, his unusual ability to become exactly what each person needed him to be, shifting his personality seamlessly depending on his audience. But here's what Jung found most disturbing about Anna's case. Even as the evidence mounted, even as her dreams became more urgent and explicit in their warnings, Anna's conscious mind created elaborate explanations to dismiss every red flag. She told herself Edward's blank expression was just tiredness. His inconsistent stories were simply poor memory. His lack of long-term relationships showed he'd been waiting for the right person. Her mind was working overtime to protect the illusion, because accepting the truth would mean acknowledging she'd been deceived, that her judgment had failed, that the future she'd planned was built on sand. This is the first disturbing truth Jung discovered about warning dreams. Your conscious mind will fight desperately to ignore them, because accepting the warning means accepting a painful reality you're not ready to face. Jung worked with Anna for several more months, helping her understand what her dreams were trying to communicate. He introduced her to what he called the shadow recognition protocol, a method for interpreting dreams that point toward dangerous people in your life. The protocol involved 3 essential questions. First, what emotion does this person trigger in my dream that I never feel with them in waking life? Second, what qualities appear in the dream version of this person that contradict their waking presentation? Third, what is my dream self trying to do that my waking self refuses to do? When Anna applied these questions to her melting face dreams, the answers were clear. The emotion was terror and revulsion, feelings completely absent from her waking relationship with Edward. The contradicting quality was the emptiness behind the mask, the sense that his presented self concealed not a different personality, but an absence of genuine personality, and her dream self was trying to see through the illusion, to recognize the performance, to escape before it was too late. Jung encouraged Anna to investigate further, but carefully. He warned her that if his suspicions were correct, confronting Edward directly could be dangerous. People who construct elaborate false personas often react with rage or manipulation when their mask is threatened. Instead, Jung suggested Anna speak with people from Edward's past, former colleagues, previous romantic partners, anyone who had known him before their relationship. What Anna discovered confirmed Jung's worst fears and validated her unconscious warnings. Edward had been engaged 3 times before. Each relationship had followed an identical pattern: intense courtship, rapid commitment, followed by increasingly controlling behavior, emotional abuse, and finally a dramatic ending, where Edward played the victim of a cruel and unstable woman. Anna spoke with 2 of his former fiancés. Both described the same experience, falling in love with a man who seemed perfect, gradually discovering that perfection was a carefully maintained illusion, and finally escaping what they now recognized as psychological imprisonment. Anna ended her engagement to Edward. He responded exactly as Jung had predicted, first with hurt confusion, then with anger, and finally with a campaign to convince their mutual friends that Anna was mentally unstable and had imagined the entire relationship. But Anna was safe, protected by her willingness to finally listen to what her unconscious mind had been screaming for months. This case became the foundation for Jung's research into what he called prophetic alarm dreams. Over the next decade, he documented hundreds of similar cases, identifying 7 distinct types of warning dreams that signal psychological danger from people in your life. The first type Jung identified was the predator transformation dream, exactly what Anna experienced. In these dreams, someone you know appears normal initially, but then transforms into something threatening or inhuman. Their face changes, melts or reveals itself to be a mask. They might become an animal, typically a snake, spider, or predatory creature, or they might simply become empty, hollow, nothing behind their eyes. Jung discovered these dreams almost always indicated what he called persona fraud, someone whose presented personality was fundamentally disconnected from their authentic self. Not everyone who constructs a persona is dangerous, Jung noted. We all wear social masks to some degree. But when the mask becomes the entirety of the person, when there's nothing genuine underneath, you're dealing with what modern psychology would later call narcissistic or antisocial personality structure. The key to recognizing predator transformation dreams is the specific emotion they generate. These dreams don't just frighten you, they create a particular kind of dread, a sick feeling in your stomach, a sense that you've seen something you can never unsee. Your unconscious mind is showing you the truth behind the performance, and once you've seen it, maintaining the illusion becomes impossible. If you're having dreams where someone close to you transforms into something threatening or reveals themselves to be hollow or artificial, your unconscious is sending you an urgent warning. This person is not who they present themselves to be, and continuing the relationship will eventually harm you. Take a moment to think about your own dreams. Have you ever experienced this type of transformation dream about someone in your life? If you have, and you're watching this video, something in you already knows the truth your waking mind is trying to ignore. The second type of warning dream Jung identified was the drowning or suffocation dream. In these dreams, you're struggling to breathe, being pulled underwater, or slowly crushed by something heavy on your chest. And when you look around for help, you see a specific person watching you struggle, either doing nothing or actively preventing your escape. Jung discovered these dreams indicated what he called energetic parasitism, people who drain your psychological vitality to fuel their own emotional needs. Unlike predator transformation dreams, which warn of conscious manipulation, drowning dreams point toward unconscious energy vampires, people who might not intend harm, but who fundamentally cannot exist without feeding on others' emotional resources. The case of Thomas illustrated this pattern perfectly. Thomas came to Jung complaining of exhaustion and depression despite his objectively successful life. He'd recently married his longtime girlfriend Maria, who everyone agreed was devoted to him. But Thomas was having recurring nightmares of drowning in a dark ocean, while Maria stood on the shore, watching with a blank expression, making no move to help. Through dream analysis and exploration of their relationship, Jung helped Thomas recognize that Maria's apparent devotion was actually sophisticated dependency. She had organized her entire identity around being his caretaker and emotional support, which sounds loving until you recognize the pattern. Every time Thomas tried to develop independent interests, Maria would have a crisis that required his attention. Every achievement Thomas celebrated would somehow become about Maria's role in supporting him. Every moment of Thomas's happiness existed to serve Maria's need to feel needed. The drowning sensation in Thomas's dreams represented his unconscious recognition that maintaining this relationship meant slowly suffocating his authentic self. Maria wasn't consciously malicious. She genuinely believed she loved Thomas, but her love was the love of a parasite for its host, requiring Thomas to remain in a diminished state so she could play her essential role. Jung helped Thomas understand something crucial about energetic parasites. They don't want to destroy you. They need you alive, but they need you weak, dependent, continuously requiring the support they provide. If you become too strong, too independent, too complete, you no longer need them, and their entire identity collapses. If you're having drowning or suffocation dreams connected to a specific person, pay attention to how you feel after spending time with them. Do you leave feeling energized or depleted? Do they celebrate your growth or subtly undermine it? Do they have an independent identity, or does their entire sense of self revolve around their relationship with you? Your dreams are warning you that continuing this dynamic will eventually drown your authentic self. Before we continue, if this information is resonating with you, consider subscribing to this channel. Jung's psychological insights can protect you from relationships and situations that your conscious mind is too polite or too hopeful to recognize as dangerous. The work we're doing here combines Jung's clinical observations with modern understanding to give you tools your unconscious mind is already trying to provide through dreams. The third type of warning dream Jung documented was the house invasion dream. In these dreams, you're in your home, your safe space, when someone you know enters uninvited. They might come in through a window, appear suddenly in a room, or simply be there when you wake up in the dream. The crucial element is the violation of your private space and your inability to make them leave, no matter what you do. Jung connected these dreams to what he called boundary dissolution, people in your life who fundamentally don't recognize or respect your psychological boundaries. They treat your private thoughts, feelings, and spaces as extensions of themselves, available for their access whenever they choose. The case that most clearly illustrated this pattern involved a patient Jung called Friedrich, a successful architect whose elderly mother had recently moved into his home. Friedrich began having disturbing dreams of waking in the night to find his mother standing beside his bed, watching him sleep. Sometimes in the dream, she would be going through his personal belongings. Sometimes she would be rearranging his furniture. Always she would look at him with an expression of loving concern when he tried to object, as if his distress at her invasion was a sign he needed her help. In waking life, Friedrich's mother presented as a devoted parent, grateful for her son's generosity. But Jung helped Friedrich recognize a disturbing pattern. His mother had keys to every locked space in his home. She read his mail, claiming she was just trying to help organize it. She listened to his phone conversations, insisting she wasn't eavesdropping but simply happened to be nearby. She offered unsolicited opinions on his clothing choices, his food, his friends, his work decisions, all wrapped in language of maternal love and concern. What made this particularly insidious was that Friedrich's conscious mind accepted his mother's framing. Of course mothers worry about their children. Of course she just wanted to help. Of course his discomfort was his own inability to accept love and support. But his unconscious mind knew better. His dreams were showing him that his mother's behavior wasn't love, but a form of psychological colonization, treating Friedrich not as a separate person, but as an extension of herself, available for her inspection and control. Jung helped Friedrich recognize something crucial about boundary violators. They always have a justification that sounds reasonable, even loving. They're just trying to help. They're showing they care. They're concerned for your well-being. But beneath the justification is a fundamental refusal to recognize your separateness, your right to privacy, your existence as an independent person with boundaries they must respect. If you're having house invasion dreams about someone, examine your waking relationship with them. Do they respect your boundaries or constantly push past them? Do they accept your right to privacy or treat your private life as their business? Do they honor your autonomy or assume they have a right to influence your decisions? Your unconscious is warning you that this person sees you not as a separate individual but as territory they have a right to occupy. The fourth type of warning dream Jung identified was the warning figure dream. In these dreams, someone you trust, often a deceased family member or a protective figure from your past, appears specifically to warn you about a person in your present life. They might speak directly, saying you need to leave, or that someone is dangerous. Or they might simply appear with an expression of concern or fear while pointing toward the threatening person. Jung was initially skeptical of these dreams, suspecting they represented the dreamer's own doubts projected onto a trusted figure. But after documenting dozens of cases, he came to believe these dreams represented something more profound: the unconscious mind's ability to access wisdom beyond individual experience, what he called the collective unconscious providing protection through archetypal symbols. The most striking case involved a woman named Helena, whose deceased grandmother appeared repeatedly in dreams, always standing between Helena and her new business partner Marcus. The grandmother never spoke, but her presence was always protective, as if shielding Helena from danger. Helena found these dreams confusing because Marcus had been nothing but supportive and professional. He'd invested significant capital in their startup, introduced her to valuable contacts, and consistently praised her work. But something in the dreams felt urgent, important, impossible to dismiss. Jung encouraged Helena to investigate Marcus's background more thoroughly. What she discovered was chilling. Marcus had a pattern of investing in startups founded by young entrepreneurs, gaining their trust, and then systematically taking control of the company through legal maneuvers, pushing out the original founders while keeping all the profits and credit. He'd done this successfully 7 times before. Helena's company was number 8. Because Helena heeded her dreams and investigated before signing away more control, she was able to protect herself. She consulted a lawyer, discovered the trap being set in the contracts Marcus was proposing, and extracted herself from the partnership before it was too late. Her unconscious mind, speaking through the protective symbol of her grandmother, had saved her business and possibly her financial future. Jung came to believe that warning figure dreams represented the psyche's ability to detect danger through subtle cues the conscious mind hasn't processed, pattern recognition happening below the threshold of awareness. Your unconscious notices micro-expressions, inconsistencies in stories, behavioral patterns that match previous threats you've encountered or heard about. When the danger is significant, it sends a warning through symbols your conscious mind will find impossible to ignore. If a protective figure appears repeatedly in your dreams, in connection with a specific person, take it seriously. Your unconscious has detected a threat pattern your conscious mind hasn't yet recognized. Investigate carefully, trust but verify. The symbol might be archetypal, but the danger is likely very real. The 5th type Jung documented was the teeth falling dream, when connected to a specific person. While teeth dreams can have various meanings depending on context, Jung noticed a particular pattern. When these dreams occurred repeatedly while in a new romantic relationship, and especially when the person causing your teeth to fall out was identifiable in the dream, they indicated what he called foundational destabilization. The case of Robert illustrated this perfectly. Robert was in the early stages of a relationship with a woman named Claudia, who seemed ideal, beautiful, successful, interested in all the same things he valued. But 3 weeks into their relationship, Robert started having dreams where his teeth would crumble and fall out, while Claudia watched with a slight smile. In some versions, she would even be pulling the teeth out herself, gently, while reassuring him everything was fine. Jung helped Robert recognize what his unconscious was detecting. Claudia's affection was conditional and strategic. She praised Robert when he did what she wanted, became cold when he asserted independence. She loved the version of Robert she was constructing, not the actual person he was. Every time Robert tried to be authentic, to express a preference that differed from hers, to maintain connections with friends she didn't approve of, Claudia would subtly punish him with withdrawal of affection or passive-aggressive comments. The teeth falling out represented Robert's unconscious recognition that being in relationship with Claudia required systematically dismantling the foundations of his identity. Each tooth was something essential about himself that he'd have to give up to maintain her approval. And the disturbing detail of Claudia watching or even causing the teeth to fall while claiming everything was fine. That was his unconscious showing him that this destabilization wasn't accidental, but a feature of how Claudia approached relationships. Jung noted that people who trigger teeth-falling dreams are often skilled at making you question your own reality. They convince you that your needs are unreasonable, your boundaries are selfish, your authentic self is something that needs to be improved or corrected. They dismantle you so gradually, so gently, that you don't recognize you're being eroded until you look in the mirror one day and don't recognize the person looking back. If you're having teeth dreams connected to a specific relationship, ask yourself honestly, am I becoming more myself in this relationship or less? Am I maintaining my foundations or slowly giving them away? Your unconscious is warning you that continued exposure to this person will leave you fundamentally weakened, missing essential parts of yourself. The sixth warning dream type Jung identified was the mirror dream, with a specific twist. In these dreams, you look in a mirror, expecting to see yourself, but instead see the person you're in relationship with, or you see your own face, but it's transforming to look like theirs. Sometimes you see both faces overlapping, unable to distinguish which features belong to whom. These dreams indicated what Jung called identity contamination, a psychological merging, where you begin losing the boundaries between your identity and another person's. This most often occurred in intense romantic relationships or long-term friendships with particularly dominant personalities. The case of Sophia showed this pattern with disturbing clarity. Sophia came to Jung after experiencing recurring nightmares, where she would look in mirrors and see her boyfriend Anton's face instead of her own. She described the dreams as deeply unsettling, giving her a sense of having disappeared or been replaced. In their sessions, Jung helped Sophia recognize that her unconscious was depicting a reality she'd been avoiding. Over the 18 months of their relationship, Sophia had gradually adopted Anton's opinions on everything, from politics to art to what foods were worth eating. She'd abandoned hobbies he found silly. She'd distanced herself from friends he didn't connect with. She'd even started using his verbal patterns and gestures. When Jung asked Sophia to describe her own preferences separate from Anton's, she struggled. She'd lost touch with her independent identity so completely that she no longer knew where she ended and Anton began. Jung explained that identity contamination happens gradually and often feels like love or connection in the early stages. You're so aligned, so similar, so perfectly matched. But healthy love involves two distinct people choosing to connect. Identity contamination involves one person's personality colonizing another's psychological space until the colonized person becomes an extension or reflection of the dominant personality. The danger, Jung noted, is that once identity contamination is complete, leaving the relationship feels like self-annihilation. How can you leave when you've given away so much of yourself that you no longer exist independently? This is why your unconscious sends these warnings early, while you still have enough separate identity to recognize the danger and escape. If you're having mirror dreams where your identity blurs with another person's, start immediately reclaiming your separateness. What did you enjoy before this relationship? What opinions did you hold? What friendships have you abandoned? Your unconscious is urgently warning you that continued merging will result in the complete loss of your independent self. The seventh and final type Jung documented was what he called the frozen dream. In these dreams, you try to move, speak, or act, but find yourself completely paralyzed. And always, somewhere in the dream, a specific person from your waking life is present, watching your paralysis with either satisfaction or indifference. Jung connected these dreams to what modern psychology would later term learned helplessness, the psychological state where repeated experiences of powerlessness train you to stop trying to help yourself, even when escape becomes possible. People who trigger frozen dreams are those who systematically undermine your agency, your confidence, your ability to act on your own behalf. The case that most clearly demonstrated this pattern involved a man Jung called Werner, whose business partner Otto appeared in recurring dreams, where Werner would be frozen in place, while Otto calmly made decisions that would ruin Werner's life. Werner would try to object, to move, to act, but found himself completely immobilized while disaster unfolded. Through analysis, Jung helped Werner recognize that these dreams reflected his waking reality. In their partnership, Otto had gradually assumed control over all major decisions by consistently treating Werner's input as naive or impractical. He'd cultivated in Werner a sense that Werner's judgment couldn't be trusted, that Werner's ideas were always slightly wrong, that Werner was lucky to have Otto's guidance. Over time, Werner had learned to stay silent and frozen even when he knew Otto's decisions were harmful, because past experiences had taught him that attempting to assert himself would only result in being made to feel foolish and incompetent. Jung explained that people who induce learned helplessness don't usually use obvious force or threats. Instead, they create environments where your autonomy is punished subtly but consistently. They undermine your confidence through seemingly helpful corrections. They express concern about your judgment while positioning themselves as the reliable decision maker. They train you to doubt yourself so thoroughly that you freeze when action is needed. If you're having frozen dreams connected to a specific person, recognize this as your unconscious raising an alarm. This relationship is systematically destroying your sense of agency and competence. The longer you stay, the more difficult leaving becomes, not because external barriers increase, but because your internal confidence in your ability to act independently erodes. Your dreams are showing you the paralysis that's already setting in, warning you to reclaim your agency before the psychological damage becomes permanent. Jung's research into warning dreams revealed something that disturbed him profoundly. The people most likely to trigger these warning dreams were often the people who appeared most impressive, most charming, most apparently perfect to outside observers. The business partner who seemed brilliant, the romantic partner who seemed ideal, the family member who seemed devoted, the friend who seemed supportive. This is because truly dangerous people understand something instinctively. The best camouflage is excellence. If you present as obviously troubled or threatening, people maintain their guard. But if you present as the perfect partner, the ideal friend, the brilliant colleague, people drop their defenses. They ignore small inconsistencies. They rationalize warning signs. They talk themselves out of their doubts, because surely someone so impressive, so accomplished, so admired, couldn't be dangerous. Your unconscious mind doesn't fall for this camouflage. It processes information your conscious mind filters out. It notices micro-expressions, tonal inconsistencies, behavioral patterns that don't quite align with the presented persona. And when it detects danger, it sends warnings through dreams, because dreams bypass your conscious filters and defenses. Jung developed what he called the dream warning protocol for patients experiencing these prophetic alarm dreams. The protocol involved 4 stages. First, document the dream immediately upon waking with as much detail as possible, especially the emotions you experienced. Second, identify the specific person appearing in the dream, and what quality or action of theirs triggers your distress. Third, examine your waking relationship with this person through the lens of what your dream revealed, looking specifically for evidence that contradicts their presented persona. Fourth, take protective action based on what you discover, whether that means creating distance, establishing firmer boundaries, or ending the relationship entirely. The crucial element Jung emphasized was acting on the information your unconscious provides, even when your conscious mind resists. Your dreaming self has no investment in maintaining illusions, no need to be polite or hopeful, no fear of appearing paranoid or judgmental. Your unconscious will tell you the truth. Your waking self finds too uncomfortable to acknowledge. But here's what Jung found most disturbing about warning dreams. Even when people recognized the warnings, even when they understood what their unconscious was trying to communicate, they often chose to ignore the information. The investment in the relationship, the fear of being wrong, the desire to believe the best of others, the social pressure to maintain connection, all these factors conspired to make people dismiss their own inner warnings. Jung documented tragic case after tragic case of patients who understood their dreams were warning them, but chose to stay, to give one more chance, to believe the person would change. And in the vast majority of these cases, The outcome was exactly what the unconscious had predicted. The charming partner revealed themselves as an abuser. The devoted family member's love was suffocating control. The brilliant business partner's support was predatory extraction. This is why Jung called these discoveries disturbing, not because the dreams themselves were frightening, but because they revealed how desperately we cling to illusions, even when our own psyche is screaming that we're in danger. Your unconscious mind is your most sophisticated early warning system. It processes thousands of subtle cues that never reach conscious awareness. It recognizes patterns based on all your accumulated life experience and inherited archetypal wisdom. When it sends you warning dreams about someone in your life, it's not being paranoid or negative. It's trying to protect you from a threat your conscious mind is too compromised to see clearly. If you're experiencing any of the 7 warning dream types Jung documented about someone in your current life, this is your moment of choice. You can continue rationalizing and hoping, investing more deeply in a relationship your unconscious knows is dangerous, or you can honor the wisdom your psyche is desperately trying to share with you. Take the warning seriously and protect yourself before the predicted damage occurs. Jung's final insight about warning dreams was perhaps the most important. These dreams don't predict inevitable futures. They show you the trajectory you're currently on, if nothing changes. They're warnings precisely because they give you the opportunity to alter course, to escape danger, to protect yourself before it's too late. But that opportunity has a window. The longer you ignore the warnings, the more deeply entangled you become, the more difficult escape becomes. Your dreams are trying to save you from people whose presented perfection hides profound dysfunction. Will you listen? The answer to that question might determine whether you look back on this moment as when you protected yourself or when you ignored your last clear warning before everything fell apart. Jung's patients who listened to their warning dreams universally reported that doing so was the most important decision of their lives. Those who didn't listen reported years of damage that could have been avoided if they trusted what their unconscious was trying to tell them. The choice is yours, but make it knowing this: your dreaming mind is not your enemy, creating paranoid fantasies. It's your truest friend, showing you realities your waking self is too invested to see. Trust the dreams. They're trying to save your life.